It's Clemson week.
That's right.
Let's go.
Super Bowl weekend.
Nuff said. Lucky Lefty podcast. Shaun Davis, SD2 mics. The original Lucky himself, Malik Zaire. Brought to you by Onora Whiskey, OnoraWhiskey.com. That premium American whiskey, OnoraWhiskey.com. And if you drink, by all means, you got to make sure that you drink
responsibly.
I'm going to put a nice little bow on this win. 41-24 over the Syracuse Orange. Malik, it looks like we're going to have to dominate and crush Orange 2 weeks in a row. That's what we're going to have to do. Just crush Orange 2 weeks in a row. You talked about your final takeaways. You slept on it. You might have even watched it again. How are you feeling about that last game Monday morning?
I'm really happy that we won with the points that we won with in a tough environment against a team that's ranked. I still believe we had a better team, though. So getting back to winning like we're supposed to, I like about that. I like that about us. So for us now, it's important to use these wins and these successes that we're having as a confidence booster to get ready to play one of the top 3 hardest games on the schedule.
Yeah. Without a question. Once again, we're going to hear from Marcus Freeman. We're going to hear from Dino Babers because, we got to give Dino Babers all the love. He's spoken into existence. We had a funny quote after the game about one Audric Estime who dominated the Orange, his redemption game. You said it was going to happen last week, Lev. How good did it make you feel to see that young man come back and reestablish himself as possibly, if not number 1, but 1B to Logan Diggs?
Logan Diggs. I love it.
So you got him 1A or 1B? Audric.
I still got to keep Audric as 1A. I think a lot of it is because I think Logan does better in the underdog role. I think where he was able to find a different motivation being in that role behind Audric, but I do think Audric can be the better back for what the team needs, especially in a game like this. I think we against a D-line as talented as it is, talent always is neutralized by physicality. So I do believe that Audric's physical ability running in between the tackles, especially against guys like Brian Brzee, I think it'll help ease up the pass rush on a Drew Pine, which we need him to have another great day of making a lot of completions, especially giving a chance to other guys this week, knowing that Clemson secondary has some holes in it.
Yeah, Lucky Lefty podcast. So let's wrap a bow on this, and we have Players Lounge coming up today. Mike Golic Jr. joins us in a few minutes to chop it up. It's one of his favorite holidays, bro. So I'm sure we're going to start off with our top 5 Halloween candies, bro. Top 5 Halloween candies. You got youngsters, so I'm sure you're going to be walking around the neighborhood tonight, this afternoon. Question of the day. At what age should you stop trick-or-treating? Because I remember in high school, I was like 16 and I was out and I was like, you know what? I think I'm done with this, man.
I think when you start to run out of ideas on what to be, because the costumes are limited in your size, I think that's when.
Okay.
When I start having to make up my own costume.
Yeah.
And I had to And I had to start looking it up and being like, what am I going to be? Because I couldn't just run to the store because it was too small in costumes.
Yeah.
I was like, that's probably it. Because I couldn't just jump into the last year's one. So I was like, let me be creative. So I was the serial killer and had to make a whole costume of cereal boxes with the plastic knives through it. So that's why I was like, I think I'm too old to be walking around like this.
Okay. All right. Dino Babers.
Coach, can you touch on Estime and what made him so difficult to stop for your defense tonight?
Say it one more time, please.
Can you touch on Estime and what made him so difficult to stop tonight?
I'm blanking. What number is he?
The running back.
Okay, thank you very much. That's the big dude, right? Yeah, he's huge. He's like, what is he, 236 or something like that? How much does he weigh? Yeah, well, you got your little thing right there. It's 236 pounds or something like that, I believe. Huh? Thank you very much. See, hang out with him more. 229 pounds. He's a big guy. He's got big thighs. The thing is, guys, if it's one back doing the whole thing, then that running back gets to get tired as everybody else is getting tired. When you're rotating 3 cats, they're only doing 1/3 of the work. You got a fresh guy coming at you every single time. It's hard. That's hard. That's difficult. And the only way it can change is if you get him on 3 and outs. And if you're not getting them on 3 outs, you can get really tired out on defense with those guys coming at you.
So that's Dino. That's a big dude.
See, I like it. I can play for Dino. That's a guy that I would enjoy.
I could watch a game with Dino.
I could watch a game
funny.
with Dino. Yeah, absolutely. He's like, did you see? I mean, what do you mean? What's hard? Did you not see how big he is? Like, come on, man. Like, some of this stuff, help me out. He's an anomaly. And he's absolutely right. When you have 3 guys, we had 4 with Tyler Buckner.
Mm-hmm.
That's rotating, doing 1/3 of work, which should have been done at Ohio State. It's hard to stop. And that's what makes our offense the 60% run, 30% Michael Mayer, and 10% other. Because that's the recipe to win. And the other coaches is acknowledging that. And I think that's where we are as a team.
Yeah.
The running backs know the importance of their role. That's why they stepped up week after week. Logan Diggs stepped up when Audric didn't. Audric stepped up as a redemption. Logan Diggs filled the gap to Chris Tyree staying consistent. When you have 3 guys doing that, it makes play calling easy. It makes the team happier. And we can score points in the 40s like we felt like we should have did starting out the season.
Lucky Lefty Podcast. Head coach Marcus Freeman was excited. If you look at the promo video that was put out after the game by Notre Dame, he was talking about being on the field with Coach Dino Babers before the game. And in that conversation, Dino Babers told him, "No, we can't wait. We've been waiting to get Notre Dame in our building." And he said he told him, "All right, we're here. Like, that's what's up. I'm glad you want us because we're here." He talked about the urgency that his team, or the urgency that's kind of taken a new hold of the locker room, as he described it. He talked about that and not just sticking to the script, but there's a new mantra that he's given to his team. Check it out.
The urgency we have as a program to improve. It's not stay the course. It's fix the course, right? And fix the mistakes that we're seeing in practice and we're seeing in games. And there has to be a sense of urgency from the top down to make sure that we're correcting everything that we're seeing on film. Any mistakes we're seeing in practice, we got to correct them and make sure that the players understand the sense of urgency we all have. And so we got to continue to improve. How do you do that? You evaluate the film, you find different areas where you're not executing the way you want, and you attack it in practice. And hopes in the game that it's a reflection of that.
You think about that, Lef. Not stick to the course, but fix the course.
Quick shout out to Julio, though. Mm-hmm. Keeping my man Marcus Freeman fresh with the lineup.
Julio fresh. Yeah, he keeps it fresh.
Trying to keep him Jalen Rose standard. I appreciate that.
We'll be number 1 in like 2 years in the rankings, but we're definitely number 1 in coach swag.
Oh.
Well, you know what? Wait a minute. Him and Dion, it might be a battle.
Dion has swag that carries over. It's not like a specific football swag. He's a swaggy person, So it's like, okay, it's Prime. If your name is Prime, that's tough.
Yeah.
But like Marcus Freeman said, urgency to fix it. We're not waiting for some magical thing to fall out the sky to fix all our issues. We're looking to see it, identify it, analyze it, and make it better. And I think being aggressively urgent on fixing your issues has put us in position to be prepared week to week. So when you go to a Carrier Dome, when the dog whistle is put out to bring everybody in their mama to bring the orange wave as a 12th man and all the things included, for us to go in there and score 41 and look good doing it, running the football, shows that urgency to fix the issues that we faced before are getting better. And that's the best thing about Notre Dame football team every year is we get better as the season goes on to where it's like, oh, we're back to regularly scheduled programming.
Lucky Lefty podcast. We'll get back to Marcus Freeman when he talked about his team. Looking forward to Clemson and how impressed he's been with what the special teams has been able to do this season. But now each and every Monday around this time, we give you the player lounge. And each and every week, we give you a Notre Dame player to come in, chop it up with, talk about the program, just talk about anything that might fall our way. We spin it different. And this week is no different as we go to one of our big brothers, not just in the game, but also just one of our big brothers when it comes to lovers of culinary. I don't think anybody posts more recipes than you, Malik. I don't know if people follow you on Facebook. You post like 10 recipes a day. I don't know how many of these recipes you actually try, but this is our culinary brother, former Notre Dame offensive lineman, CFB, college football analyst. Go check him out. Great show, the Gojo Show podcast. Go follow it now on YouTube. Fighting Irish fans, we welcome to the show, big bro Mike Golic Jr. MJG, what's good?
What's up, guys? I had no idea I needed to be following Malik on Facebook to get the recipes. That's where we're serving it up. I just need to. I was simply unaware, and as someone who only recently started trying to get in the kitchen and do some stuff, I'm excited to follow on the journey with you now.
Oh man, like I love the food posts, and you're right. It brings everybody together. When you find a good recipe, especially when it's easier than you thought it was.
There's nothing better than the first time when you start cooking a little bit. And I went through, a friend of mine made a cookbook. So I just told myself, I'm going to cook my way through her cookbook. Going back about 2 months into that, when you're going to make something and you realize, oh, now I already have a lot of the base ingredients, was one of those really like fulfilling adult moments.
Yeah.
No, that's crazy. So it's funny. Let's talk about this right quick. The 11 o'clock start, noon Eastern, is the absolute worst when you're setting up what you want to eat, right? I was eating a breakfast sandwich on Saturday, bro. Yeah. I'm like, dude, Wingstop is not even open yet. It's like, man, it's the worst. Like, the early start has to be the worst for college football fans, especially when you're trying to set up your spread.
I'm glad you said fans, because as a player, the noon start rocks.
Okay.
Yeah.
We had one noon start in my career. We played on the road at Pitt in a noon game, and we were back in South Bend by like 5. I got to get a nap in before we went out and started drinking. It was incredible.
Yeah.
Or so the breakfast is bomb, huh?
And like, you know what? It was all good. I was never a guy. See, again, difference, because like you said, fan-wise, I think the 3:30 kick's probably the sweet spot at this point. 7 o'clock kick, that's too long. You're letting everyone sit out too long. You see people start getting a little different and acting up a little bit. The 3:30 is perfect. But as a player, I didn't really eat much pregame. I ate enough to be fueled, but I wasn't going to go hog wild even with all the nice stuff they fed us. And so now it's different. Now, I need time to usually make a couple appearances at different tailgates because, different tailgates have different food setups. I'm not usually hosting. And so I'm making sure I go get the cheese dip that's at one that I know I like, the brats that are at one that I know I like, et cetera, et cetera.
Yo, it's getting crazy now, even in high school teams. Because my cousin/nephew, he plays for Brother Rice Catholic up here in Chicago. And they feed them Chick-fil-A before every game. I'm like, what? Where's the budget for that? He was like, we get 2 chicken sandwiches, a fry, 2 cookies. He's an offensive lineman, so he claims that they forced them to eat that much before the game. And I'm like, high school was totally different than when I played.
Man, we had like the parents cooking,
Right.
They
cook some pasta the night before and all that. Like we would do that. Man, high school is rich now.
Rich.
Yeah, kids that go to high school now wear all the designer stuff, going to class. It's like,
the first time I went to the mall post-pandemic, I was so humbled because I just hadn't been around people in mass like that, especially not high school kids. And you're right, they're all walking up here. Like that was when the Crocs and the giblets were starting to get big. They had everything had changed very quickly, and that was as old as I had felt in quite some time.
Yes.
So, everybody be safe. Those of you that had children, make sure they're safe. You go out there, walk them around, get out as early as you can and get back home as early as you can and let them celebrate Halloween. But we're going to talk about, because I watched you guys last week talk about this with your dad. So I put my own top 5 Halloween candy list together. I was like, I got to get into this with MGJ. Malik, you want to go with yours or do you want me to go first?
I think you should go first.
Okay. See, my number 1 is without question Reese's. I'm going to go in reverse order. No, Reese's number 1. I don't know what the heck is wrong with Dan Orlovsky. Like, he's bugging.
Listen, Dan just has like a weird aversion to flavor. He's a sweet man. He's a kind man, but flavor is just not a big part of his life and hasn't been. So we got to slowly wean him onto this good stuff here. We're helping him join the community of flavor as we go along here. That's one of my duties as his friend. Number
2 for me, Starburst. Starburst is just always, especially if they give you the mini packs. They give you the mini packs for Halloween, which is kind of gypping you a little bit. But if I can get that lemon strawberry pack or the lemon cherry combination,
you're working with something.
Yeah, I'm working with something. That's absolutely beautiful.
All right, now I'm curious about the rest of this list because you just told me something about yourself there, and I want to see if it's consistent to the rest of the list. I'm gonna bide my time.
I think I'm balanced. I think I'm a balanced OC of Halloween candy. We'll see. My third had to go chocolate. My favorite chocolate bar is Milky Way. Milky Way. It was between Milky Way and Snickers, but I slid Milky Way in there because that's the one that's my go-to for most of my years. So I had to slide Milky Way in at 3. Number 4. See, I blame this on my mom. I'm a huge Milk Duds fan.
See, that's my number 1.
I'm a huge Milk Dud fan.
That's my number 1. I'm a Milk Dud fan. That's my number 1.
Milk Dud fan? I'm a Milk Dud fan too, Lee.
Yes, underrated.
Huge Milk Dud fan.
See, Milk Duds to me. So you know how on your phone now, they've got us bugged and they're watching us go everywhere. And you know how when you're in your car and you go somewhere in your phone and it starts to pull up the things that you'll need there. Like when I go to the gym and I swipe down on my phone, it automatically puts the app there because it knows I got to scan in there. It like does all that stuff. To me, Milk Duds are that. They're a geo candy. When I walk into the movie theater, they vault to number 1. If I'm going to the movies, Milk Dud is the absolute first thing I reach for. In no other walk of life will that be true, but at the movie theaters, absolutely 110%. So I'm with you guys on good candy. Top 5, a little rich for my taste, but I respect where you're going.
And then, look, I'm going to go ahead with a tried true candy to round out my list. I had a bunch of contenders for that 5th spot. And I started to go regional, because I'm from Chicago. So Chicago has a lot of corner stores, a lot of neighborhood stores where people have this candy store in their backyard. The kids go to, grandma's backyard. Everybody calls her grandma the block, and they get a Chico stick, or they get the frosted strawberry cookies or the frosted lemon cookies. Leaf, you know what I'm talking about. You're from the Midwest.
Cowtails, they don't even have those out here.
Cowtails, slow poke.
Yeah.
Cowtail's good.
Yes,
Cowtails
sir.
are good.
But I decided to settle on Twizzler. A
Yeah.
good Twizzler
The good Twizzler. You can't go
in your
wrong.
Halloween bag at number 5.
But you know what's crazy? People believe red vines are better.
I know fans of red vines that will spew that type of foolishness.
It's
I know
foolishness.
that. I've heard that. But I almost went with the sour strings over Twizzler. But that's kind of regional. That's really not a national candy.
National candy.
Like the sour punch joints, you know what I'm talking about? The strawberry or the cherry.
You don't want that all the time, though.
No.
You don't want that all the time.
That was my biggest question once you went Starburst at number 2, because as you pointed out, there are kind of two factions of Halloween candies, right? There's the fruity Halloween candies and there's the chocolate-based Halloween candies. And usually people that skew on that side, once I saw Starburst at 2, shocked that Sour Patch Kids didn't make the top 5, because for so many people, those are a top tier candy. I've seen some people put that at number 1 or number 2. So you're on the sweeter side of the fruity candy as opposed to that tart sour portion of this
Sour Patch Kid. I like the roof of my mouth to be kind of smooth. They tear up the roof of your mouth. Then you have to work. The sugar is very damaging to your teeth. It's just too much. It's too much.
But what's a classic though are the Fruity Tooties.
Yes.
I will eat 500 in a row.
Now, what's your favorite flavor of Fruity Tooties?
The blue
grape, the apple,
the blue one.
The blue one.
Blue one. I don't even know what it might just say the blue one on the wrapper. Because I don't know the flavor. Maybe blue raspberry, but Tutti Fruities are my can't go wrong.
Fans are coming at me in the chat already. I got Double Down says I look at Shaun differently for not having Skittles in his top 5.
See, Shaun's being aware of that report that came out about Skittles. It's like you can't even rep Skittles no more.
Yeah, Skittles just.
What happened with Skittles?
They said that the Skittles are like, I don't want to ruin anybody's love for Skittles.
What was the food coloring or something?
Yeah, it's like they're just cancerous in general.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, listen, like if we want to get into like the red dye 40 stuff, none of this is good for us.
No.
Like, I like all of this is taking minutes. I assume when I'm snacking on candy, I'm taking minutes off my life at a time. And that's the deal with the devil that I make in exchange for this. I walk into this willingly. So, it's one of those things. Life is short already. Am I going to exchange a few minutes on the back end when I'm likely pooping my own diaper for the time that I could spend now out here munching on candy? The answer is probably no.
Yeah. I can be cool with that. The Fruities, Chews. For those that might not be familiar with Chews, Chews are great candy. If you go to the candy store, never really got that during a Halloween trick or treat. From my memory, I never remember that getting thrown in my bag. Contenders like you had Snickers, which is huge for a lot of people.
Huge.
Butterfinger, I can understand. Paydays, people like that. Yeah.
Twix was in the 2 spot for me. Twix is super underrated. Bunch of different flavors. Get that hard crunch in there. You get a lot of bang for your buck. Like on a normal size Twix, you're getting 2 of them. They're pretty robust. It's a lot of candy for your buck.
Economical friendly.
So before we get to Notre Dame, what's the dangerous? I'm about to pass out because I've had way too much of this candy on Halloween. What's the dangerous candy?
The sour
strings for you?
Yes.
The sour strings for you? Starburst for me. I can go through Starburst like it's nothing.
I've done it all week with candy corn. I sit there. I love candy corn. I buy myself a bag, but then I'll sit there on the couch, and it's one of those. It adds up quick, and all of a sudden you realize you've just ingested a bunch of sugar plastic, and it really can start to sit in there. So that's the one I've made myself sick on this week. I'm going trick or treating tonight. with a friend of mine and his kid. And so I'm sure I'm going to find and test my limits with a bunch of stuff, but candy corn's been the medicine so far.
At what age did you stop trick-or-treating?
You know what? I don't remember. I want to say we went out through my time in like 7th and 8th grade. Like we were still getting after it. We had a good neighborhood, a lot of, kids that had been the same age for a while. And hell, I was going to go until they cut off the nozzle for me, right? As long as I showed up at the door, and I was a, big 6th, 7th, 8th grader. So it was going to be a touch and go battle with that. But as long as I showed up, the thing that wiles me out is, so I used to show up with the pillowcase because I was about moving in volume. I was talking to my mom about this the other day. Halloween teaches you to hustle. Like if you haven't encountered that in another avenue of your life, you got to go out here and work. Hilly neighborhood, a lot of houses. If you wanted, like this is a real closed mouths don't get fed situation. And so I went with the pillowcase. I was wild because once shoe was on the other foot, and now I'm in the candy distribution business the last couple of years. My house in Connecticut, we used to, like tons of traffic, like 400, 500 kids come by on Halloween. And so I was ready. I the candy budget, all that stuff. But you'd see kids roll up now. They would just take their backpacks, put it in the front, unzip the thing, and they'd just be like dumping it in the pouch in front, which part of me was like, whoa, you guys are messing with the code. The other part of me realized, no, this is pretty ingenious. You guys are working smarter, not harder. And I have to applaud this.
Yeah, I agree with that. Let's get some of these comments from the fans. Lilo Galante, what's up, boy? Thank you for tapping in as always. His list: O. Henry, number 1, Grand Slam, number 2, M&M's Peanut, number 3. He has a tie with Snickers. That's kind of unfair because he snuck 6 items on here, but he has Peanut, M&M's, and Snickers at 3. Reese's Cup. Reese's are way too low there, Lilo. I'm sorry.
Yeah, to stop right there. It says too low.
Yeah, and just outside of the Halloween candy playoffs, he has Boston Baked Beans coming in at 5.
That is wild. He just snuck 2 threes in there like we weren't going to notice.
Right. Make a decision, Lilo. And then Ben Gutierrez. I don't know. Hey, Ben, let us know where you're from. All right. So we can tell it. Because he said, come to my house, full-size Snickers, Twix, Milky Way, Starburst, and Skittles. Where are you at, Ben?
Yeah.
Hey, man, that's how you guys set the tone. That was always my thing is like, listen, I'm very, very fortunate to be in a good place in life, very fortunate to be able to take care of myself. But I was like, the one place I wanted to pay that for was king size over everything when kids were coming by my house. I wanted to set the tone. Like when I would see that look on the face of a kid that realized, oh, the rest of the houses on the block are not getting down like this, and this guy's the one with the king size bars. The 2 feelings I chased as an adult were that feeling of making sure that I was the one people knew were handing out the good stuff, and then the feeling of watching other grown men and their wives walk past my lawn and how well taken care of it was. And when I would see like the wife tap the husband and point to the lawn, realizing that she was clearly pointing out, why doesn't yours look like that? Those are the 2 greatest highs I found in adulthood so far.
So far, yeah. Okay, you win it.
So far.
You win it.
Yeah, man. So that's, dude, you know what the worst thing is, though, Malik? When you walk into the store, because you're going to get one candy bar, and that candy bar just happens to have a nice yellow sticker right underneath that says 2 for $3.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I only wanted 1.
Yeah,
but you get 2 for $3, you're like, okay, you're going to give me 2.
They start doing that CVS for Milk Duds. You buy 2, get the 3rd one free.
Now you're talking. Now you're forcing me to go to the movies now. I have to go to a movie if I get 3 packs of Milk Duds.
When did they start doing that, though? 2? And you get another one?
Yo, speaking of Milk Duds, he wasn't a dud, but he was a whole lot of chocolate on that field. And that's Audric Estime. Okay. Look, let me tell you something, man. What Dino Baber said about him after the game.
You call that man a whole lot of chocolate.
A whole lot of chocolate.
He's a whole lot of chocolate up there in the JMA Dome. Look, I love redemption stories. And even though they, the fumbles were a problem, and he was really playing well before the fumble issues. But to see him come back and be that dominant force for Notre Dame this weekend, it had to be something that you love to see moving forward, especially with the schedule they have coming up in November, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, Notre Dame, you have to lean into that, right? We knew the passing attack was going to be tough to come by. It's proven that much, and that was still true on Saturday. And so this was a matchup where it was perfect strength on perfect weakness, right? Syracuse is starting a 5'11", 265-pound nose tackle. I haven't seen that since Nikita Whitlock at Wake Forest in 2012. Like, when you've got that against an offensive line, good with size across the board and has been getting better, and a running back who's clearly spent a lot of time in the bench rack, like, yeah, we're good. That was absolutely the right game plan. Awesome to see, like you said, that the fumbling issues didn't transfer over into this game and that Audric was able to go out there and be the star for this one. So really encouraging. The run game and the blocking in front of it continues to improve week in and week out, which was always should have been the goal. I knew I came into this season, I think, a little overestimating how quickly it would all come together and forgetting there was a lot of change that happened this offseason for everyone involved.
So quickly, Marcus Freeman is speaking to the media as we speak right now. And his offensive players of the game, or his players of the game, were Jared Patterson, Brandon Joseph, and Clarence Lewis on special teams. I don't know about that offensive one, but, I need to watch the film for Jared Patterson.
I will say this. JP was a guy that could have left last year for the draft, had played center for us all in the last couple of years, like, as you guys well know, but came back because he knew he was going to get NFL quality coaching and Harry Easton, and he moved to guard in the interest of getting the best five on the field. When they wanted to get Zeke into the lineup at center, they asked Jared if he played guard. I think this is the best football he's played in his entire career. Like, I truly think that guy has helped himself stock up in a major way going into the draft, where now you show, because usually going into the NFL as a center, you got to start off playing guard in a lot of the places that end up drafting you. Like, I haven't watched that tape specifically either. I'll take coach's word for that, but he's played the best football of his career. And, I know he's, the wear and tear at this point in the season in November, especially for a fifth-year guy, like, I'm sure he's feeling it, but he's been huge for them as the captain up front in an offense that lost one of their other captains before the season even started.
Let's stay on that wave, Mike. The two bookends, the two youngsters. Let me tell you something, man. Each and every game, I'm sitting here like, you mean we get these guys back again next year? And they're big dudes. Joe Alt is just a big athletic dude at left tackle. And then Blake Fisher, it seems like, because people really didn't understand, he didn't have a lot of games under his belt like Alt did, because Alt pretty much played a lot during the regular season. Blake just came back for the bowl game. So this was pretty much like his freshman year all over again. But each week you watch this kid learn how to play the game. And he talks about the relationship between him and Harry Easton and how he's able to go out and take what he's given and apply it. And then not only apply it, but when he does it, now I understand why he's asking me to do that. Just talk about the relationship with Harry Easton, that offensive line, and how they've steadily improved. And then those two tackles that Notre Dame has.
Yeah, so I'll say this. I only had Coach Easton for 1 year, and in that 1 year, he became the best football coach that I have had in my entire life. Like, it's to this day still, one of the most important relationships I have, one of my favorite people to see when I go back onto campus. His word outside of my father's is as important as any man in my life, just because of the character I know he has. The day one, when he comes in, you understand and learn very quickly how much this Notre Dame offensive line room matters to him. He came in, and when we've had our first meeting with him, he talked about the pride and tradition of that room. He talked to us about the great names that have been in there before us, the great coaches that have been a part of that legacy, and how it was our job to go out and honor that legacy with the way that we played. It matters to him the way we represent that room. It matters to him the way we represent him. He understands in the coaching community, what we put on tape is a direct reflection of him. And there's a lot of pride in that. And so the deal with him is, if you give him everything that you've got, and you're going to have to give everything to survive, because he's a hard man to be coached by. As a grinder in the truest sense of the word. You're going to be out there earlier than everyone else. You're going to be out there later than everyone else. You're going to work harder than every other position group on the field. I can say that comfortably. There is not a position group that is going to do as much as the offensive line at Notre Dame is going to do with that man in charge. But on the other side, if you give him that, he's going to make you the best you can possibly be. I can say that without fail. You have a choice. And if you give him and you buy into all of that, we've seen the proof is in the pudding. And like we sat around as players and looked at everywhere he had been before he got to Notre Dame. And you saw All-Americans and draft picks. And then he got to Notre Dame. And what did you see? All-Americans and draft picks, high draft picks, big money guys in the NFL right now, because that's what he creates. And so he demands really specific stuff. So when you get to, like you said, Joe and Blake, and really all the guys on this team, I mean, outside of some of the guys on the inside here, when you talk about like Josh Lugg, who's a sixth year, who was the last holdover of a guy who got to touch the he stand era at Notre Dame on offensive line, he asks very specific things of you technique wise, and he's not going to accept any less. And they're hard things to go out on the field and do, because hard things are tough. Like when you out in the field, it's easy to go out there and just try and get in front of guys and protect yourselves and play wide and loose and try not to screw anything up in a major way. And you end up sacrificing a lot of the technique that's going to make you top end successful. And so to do that, it's hard. It's hard to trust yourself to go out and execute that every week. And I think you saw that for the whole line, because they were getting used to this. This is no slight to Jeff Quinn, who's a good offensive line coach at the college level. It's just, I know the different things and the different demands day to day that Harry puts on an offensive line. And so to watch those guys, you've seen it every week. It's slowly gotten in there, as you've seen, especially Blake, because like both of these tackles, they're young. They haven't played a lot of football comparatively. And I think people in our fan base, myself included, started to act like they had been here a lot longer than they had been. And that's just not the case. And so with that, coupled with a different demand on them from this coach, it's been each and every week, you see little flashes where it's okay. They're starting to trust it more. They're starting to take this coaching and put it out onto the field. And as you pointed out, that's a dangerous thing. Once you start to see, oh, this is why we do this in practice every day, because it's so monotonous. You're not going to do a bunch of like trick stuff. You're not going to be in shoots and all that. Like you're going to do stuff that's going to translate directly out of the field. Every drill you do is going to be something that shows up in a game situation. And once you start to see that, and I'm seeing it on tape, I know the drills they're running because I ran them. And when I see it show up on tape, I'm like, all right, it's sticking a little more with these guys each and every rep. And they're going to need that because their toughest challenge is still ahead of them. This Clemson D-line will be the best one they see all year by far. And it's going to ask a lot more of them in a lot different ways than what they saw at Syracuse, but it's exciting to see.
Definitely exciting to see. I think so too, especially seeing the growth. I always said the best part about a Notre Dame football team is that we get better every game, especially as the season goes on. And you see it in different aspects. The offensive line is shaping up, because what you said is very, very true. And why Marcus Freeman is going to have a lot of success, because the foundation is right. When you have a guy like Harry Heastand that expects so much from the offensive line, that you know that you can hang your hat on it in any environment. And I think that's always been the thing that pulls us through in these huge, blown up, hyped up media games, late night primetime games that we're in, is that at the end of the day, we're going to block somebody. Which gives us a chance to win all these games. I'm telling you.
Yeah, that was the identity of Notre Dame under Brian Kelly, was the offensive and defensive lines. And I think, we put plenty of guys in the pros and had a really good D line, but I mean, the offensive line was the namesake for this school for so long. Throw tight ends in there also. So it's nice to see them getting back to that, because even last year we saw injury and just underperforming. It hadn't been the same offensive line that we had been used to. So getting back to having that foundation, I think, makes everything easier, which right now they need, because we're starting a guy who was the backup to start the season at quarterback. You've got a bunch of young guys who are trying to get reps at wide receiver right now and get used to that. And the passing attack is still very much a work in progress. And so having a foundation to build off with, that's important.
And Malik had to tell me, myself, and the rest of the Irish fans, yo, relax last year. He was like, you all are spoiled. This is what regular offensive line play looks like across college football.
Yeah, we were good, just a regular offensive line.
We only went through it for 1 year.
I mean, listen, but you want to talk about last year, I think, and again, I don't dogpile on college players. Drew Pine is a guy that I have a lot of respect for, because he reminds me a lot of me. He's not the most talented guy in the world. He grew up in Connecticut, and he really loves Notre Dame. And I know he's going out there and giving it his all and doing that. But it has the quarterback situation this year, going from the injury to Tyler Buckner at the beginning of this season. The volatility there kind of gave me an appreciation for what we had last year in Jack Cohn as a veteran who had been under center for so many games. And while that was a complicated situation last year, we saw multiple quarterbacks and there were games where it wasn't always pretty. By the end of the year, once you had Jack in that offense and him and Tommy had gotten to work together for a while, man, you saw some really impressive stuff from him. And I think when you look at the difference between last year and this year, really not that much when you look at the roster and when you look at the way things have gone. A lot of close games last year, you won because you had a veteran coach and a veteran quarterback. And so that's kind of the way that these things go. And so this year, I think we're seeing a little bit more of what feels like a learning curve, because in those areas, you've made calculated risks, right? You've said, Marcus Freeman, we want to increase the ceiling of this program by going out and making sure that at the recruiting trail, we're getting over a hump that's been perceived in there for a little while. And now a quarterback, they're going to have some decisions to make, I think, going into this offseason, especially how you address this at the transfer portal potentially. Are you comfortable having Tyler come back and rehab and potentially be the guy? And so those are all questions that are going to get asked and answered this offseason in this new world of college football. But for right now, we have to remember that these are young players and a young coach doing this for the first time. And we're seeing the growth in those spots as well that I think is important.
So we move forward, and it reminds me of, I'm a Tom and Jerry fan. And I remember one episode where Tom was teasing Lil Spike, right? And Big Spike was nowhere to be found. And Tom turned his back, and by the time he turned back around, Big Spike had shown up. And when he turned around, he saw Big Spike. He was like, "Oh no!" It's kind of the feeling that Zeke Correll is going to have when he lines up this week, going from Darton and looking at Brazil, like, "Oh man, wait a minute, this is Big Spike." It's totally different defensive line and defensive front they're facing this week. But two teams that really come in, I think Clemson is a 4-point favorite right now, but they come in pretty much struggling on offense, very similar to Notre Dame. With the quarterback situation, not really knowing what to get out of it. DJ played much better early in the season. He had the hiccup early against Syracuse. They pulled him and were able to get the win with the freshman Cade Klubnik. But both teams come into this game with the quarterback being the question. So will it be a question of which defense plays the best or which quarterback plays the best in this matchup?
I mean, I expect both defenses to play really well. And I think for Notre Dame's defense against Clemson, the best matchup is up front with them. Clemson's got a really good freshman right tackle, but besides that, it's the usual freshman Clemson offensive line that is good, not great. Like, they're a solid group. They'll put guys in the pro every once in a while, but scheme-wise, they put those guys on an island a lot. I'm not, envious of the situation they're put in. And I think Brandon Streeter calls really good offense for them this year. I think that's been one of the pleasant surprises, is they've done a little bit more schematically to help these guys. You've got a tight end room that's a little more full that they've made use of, which really wasn't the case for a long time in Clemson. But I think you can get creases up front. And the way Notre Dame moves, the way they operate and use their linebackers like Maris and all those dudes, you can create seams and create creases in this defense. And so I think both defenses have a chance to be really successful. The quarterback situation is worrisome because the last time we saw DJ at Notre Dame Stadium, he set a record for passing yards by an opposing quarterback. We know he's got that tool in his bag. He's got talent there. The wide receiver crop isn't what it used to be for Clemson, but these guys are starting to figure it out. They were on a good upward trajectory until the Syracuse game, and then all the wheels fell off. DJ was turning the ball over. That was a bit of an aberration. And so I'd expect better from that position for them. For Notre Dame, it's going to be about, all right, limiting the mistakes from quarterback for you. You've still got young guys that you've been trying to mix in there, make use of the 4 games in the red shirt for some of these guys. And so I think it's going to be about going out here, finding creative ways in the run game, because Clemson's going to load the box and dare us to throw. Like, that would be the smart way to do it, even with all the talent they have. Load up, put 8 in the box, and dare Notre Dame to throw over the top of you to someone other than 87. And that's going to be the challenge, is finding creative ways to do that. Tommy's always been good at finding creative ways to get our best player the ball, even when everybody knows that's the case. But it's also going to be mixing in a lot of different kinds of runs. Clemson's super scheme versatile as far as their 3-down, 4-down stuff. So it's a big challenge, because across the board, those are future NFL players going up against guys that may be NFL players one day in the offensive line. But outside of Jared, you're still a few years away from finding that out for the majority of these guys. And I'm excited to see them respond to that challenge.
Yeah, hopefully they can pick up more points off the ground that they consistently leave on the ground each and every game offensively. Like, we leave so many points on the field just from, like, you go back Saturday, the screen to Lorenzo Styles was like a big play. You're like, man, just pop it out there, understand a rusher was coming in your face, pump fake him, just get it out to him. You had another opportunity over top to Tobias Merriweather in the slot. You threw it a little bit late. Safety got into the play, was able to knock it down. They have the opportunities, Mike. You know, a lot of people have taken shots, not only on Drew Pine, but they've taken shots on the wide receiver core. And like you said, with the issues at the quarterback position, you would have to guess that these wide receivers at some point kind of get frustrated with some inconsistencies and maybe Pine locking on to 87 a little bit more than the rest of them.
Well, I think it's twofold, right? Young receivers often have trouble, and Malik, you can appreciate this, picking up offense. Like, it's your first time on campus doing this in earnest in a college offense. A lot of guys will struggle picking up the playbook, and so maybe you're all not where you need to be at the same time. So I don't know enough about the specifics of that to say whether it's quarterback, receiver. I'd assume it's a combination of both. Michael Mayer's a guy, though, is going to be where he needs to be. You can put him in a bunch of different spots. And so having someone that's reliable when you're a quarterback doing this in the fire for the first time, I'd imagine is a pretty easy place to get locked on because 87 just catches everything and he makes everything better. He's incredible.
Do you believe the state of the quarterback room is a result of talent not being as high as it should be, or a development issue up to this point? Because a lot of people would say Drew Pine, at this point in his career, being there for so long, should be better than what he's showing, even though we're winning.
Well, I'll say this, right? Like, you can be there as long as you want to. I was at Notre Dame for 4.5 years before I got on the field, and then that was my first time starting, and it's different. Being behind the scenes and getting developed, one thing. If you're not getting game reps, it really doesn't matter all that much. Like, you can only learn so much going against each other in practice and going through the reps there until you start to see this stuff at game speed and realize, oh, this is the adjustment I have to make and account for based on how that changes. You can only grow so much. And so, yeah, like, development certainly there. Like, Drew's a good kid. He's not the most talented kid in the world. We can all see that as far as the physical tools. And so there were some things he was only going to learn by getting on the field. And that's why I think some of that development stuff, like, it's a fun word to say, and we see it manifest. Like, I think that's more important development-wise of when you got really talented freshmen, getting them on the field early to me is a sign of, like, all right, what can you do to make them comfortable very early on and to get them in a spot where they can go and put those tools on display. And for everyone else, especially when you're working in some spots with a lesser crop of talent, and I know about being a lesser talented player, you got to get on the field and be able to work some of this stuff out and find out how you bridge that gap for yourself once you're there.
What's the biggest challenge facing Marcus Freeman in this program? I think they recovered nicely. I think he started to instill his plan. I don't know if it was, I don't want to say infighting, but, you know, players get used to doing things a certain way for so long, then someone else comes in and asks them to do something a different way. And every now and then it's a little tug of war. And then all of a sudden the players start to buy in fully. And then the program starts to take off. I saw a head coach personally take more accountability and responsibility for his program on Saturday on 2 to 3 separate occasions on the sideline. So for me, it's been really pleasing to see his growth as a head coach and to see him take more responsibility for the program. How do you see it moving forward? And what's the next step? Is it going to be beat Clemson, beat USC, win big games, and build towards next year? Or is it something simpler than that?
I think it's simpler than that. I think bowl eligibility is really, I want to see them get to a bowl, get those extra practices. They need the time under task together. And then it's really going to be about decision-making. And for me, it was about in-game decision-making. How do you handle stuff like fourth downs, timeouts, situations that are on your plate as a head coach now? And we go back to the bowl game last year against Oak State, and there were a couple of spots where you saw a defensive head coach operate a little bit conservatively, like a defensive head coaches want to do. This year, we've seen some growth in that area, a willingness to be more aggressive when the situation calls for it. And then it's going to be about the decisions you make as far as roster building. We know we can recruit, but in this day and age, how you work the portal, especially at positions like quarterback, wide receiver, spots where we lack depth, can they go out there at a place in Notre Dame where academically you certainly got restrictions, but can you still go out and find guys that are willing and available to get there in that spot? I think those things are going to be important because this year, like Clemson and SC are going to be tough this year. Like those are teams that are just right now, I think, more talented than us top end. And that's not a knock. It's just where we're at as far as we were injured at a couple of spots, especially at, the skill positions coming into this season. And that's not gotten better as the season's gone along. So there's plenty of young talent that's on the way that we've seen show flashes and continue to develop. Clemson and USC will both be good tests because USC's defense can be had. Clemson offensively has flaws. They're not perfect teams by any stretch of the imagination. And so you've got a chance to be competitive in those games. But winning or losing them, to me, doesn't define the success or failure of the season. Once we lost to Marshall and I kind of recalibrated, get to a bowl game, get those extra practices in, and then really continue to work on making sure as a staff, you guys have a clear plan of what the identity you want is going forward and how you want to build and develop this team going into the offseason.
Now, your gridiron genius goes far beyond Notre Dame. So we want to tap into that. What was more shocking this weekend? The brawl in the Michigan tunnel or the demise of the Texas A&M program in the 6th year of Jimbo Fisher?
I mean, I shouldn't be surprised by either. Like Texas A&M has found creative ways to go 8-4 for quite a while now under Jimbo Fisher, but I would probably still say that I've been surprised at how and just how inept offensively it's been. They hadn't scored 24 points in a calendar year against FBS competition under a guy in Jimbo Fisher who's supposed to know offense really well. It has kind of his stranglehold on that side of the ball. The Michigan State thing, it was unfortunate, and those guys are going to get punished, and it's a bad look and all that stuff you want to say, but it's a rivalry game where a lot of these guys know each other. The tempers got heated at the end and then everyone went up. I'm not blaming the tunnel, but it's the reality there that stadium security and the staffs there didn't do a good enough job of making sure everyone hung back until Michigan State got up there. And so, yeah, like that's the stuff. It's unfortunate, but it's not the first fight we've seen in a football field or in a football locker room or anything like that. So I'm not going to, clutch my pearls too hard here. Those guys got suspended. They're going to get punished. It could be worse, and that's the position they put themselves in.
Hey, look, man, I understand, and I'm not trying to give any excuse, but it's probably not a good idea to go in the midst of green and white by yourself when the rest of your boys are far behind.
Yeah, I mean, that was the number one thing that stuck out to me because, again, like I don't want to blame the victim or anything. Like it does, a bunch of guys shouldn't jump it in, but at the same time, like we're all taught the buddy system as players, right? You don't go somewhere without a teammate. So when I first saw that, I was like, I don't know why there's not more jerseys around.
That's a suicide mission, though, man. You out there just, I don't know what makes you feel like that was okay.
And listen, maybe he was trying to go back to the locker room for a perfectly legitimate reason. Had to get back there for something. Like, who knows? I'll wait and find out all that stuff. But
you found some reasons now.
Maybe he had to go to the bathroom really bad and was holding in all fourth quarter. Who knows? But like you said, man, he just got caught in a bad situation. Like you said, both of the Michigan players that were pretty much assaulted. We hope they feel, hope they're okay. Hope it doesn't, prohibit them being able to play for the rest of the season or partake of the rest of the football season. Is Alabama the scariest team right now? And the reason I ask this question, I'm not talking about from a talent standpoint. Everybody knows where they're struggling at. Defensively, they're not as good as they expected to be. But I just have a problem when it seems like Nick Saban is that people have just kind of like thrown him to the side like, oh, it's Tennessee, it's Ohio State, it's Georgia, it's Oregon, it's all these other hot teams right now, and then Alabama is just somewhere off. Like, they're still in this, like, and it's Nick Saban. Like, don't get it twisted.
Alabama's always super scary. I think for me, though, this year, just because weapons-wise, they're a little more muted than they've been in the past. To me, it's Tennessee just because of the style of play for them right now.
Yeah,
Alabama, like once they get there, you're going to get the Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers effect where we understand at this time of year, they work the system better than almost anybody. But in the meantime, what we've seen from Jalen Hyatt and from Hendon Hooker and that Tennessee offense that's just such a specific style now. Mm-hmm. The most, like, if we talk about the air raid tree of guys and how Mike Leach is the most distilled down version of that, what you've got with Josh Heupel here is the most distilled down version of spread no huddle, where it's, all right, quarterback's looking at the box. I do the math problem. If the numbers don't add up here, ball goes out there. Ball goes go ball downfield. We're going to paint the sidelines. And then when we get light box looks, we're going to let our O-line and running backs go to work. And it's worked really well because you've got great parts at all those. Hendon Hooker is awesome. Their offensive line, really good. The wide receivers that we talked about, like Cedric Wilson's not even back out there yet at wide receiver for the most part, and they're still getting great production from Hyatt. Defensively, they've done a really good job outside of, down and down out pass defense, but in the red zone, run defense, you've got quality parts that play that well. And then you have the system that just, when you go that fast and you're able to operate it the way that they are, it creates a scary proposition for everybody. It's almost like dealing with a triple option team in that your preparation has to change during that week.
Right.
A lot of the normal stuff that they're doing during the week, you have a chance to get them like they did against Alabama in compromised positions down in and down out, where you take the best pass rusher in football and Will Anderson and basically render him ineffective for that entire game.
Yeah, because his whole game is 2 seconds.
Yeah, it's got to be 2 seconds or less. So
it's nothing you can do.
All right, so who's your top 4 right now? If the playoffs started today, what 4 teams would be in there?
If it started today, it would probably be Tennessee, Georgia, Ohio State, and Michigan. I mean, those are the 4 best teams in college football right now. So you'd have Alabama on the outside looking in, TCU and company in that range. Like, the rest of the top 10 is sort of a grab bag that's going to have to sort itself out, because I don't know who the best team in the Big 12 is at this point after what we saw from Oklahoma State this past weekend.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
But right now it's the SEC Big 10 Challenge.
And you know what, Malik, we talk about this all the time, man. It's so frustrating to watch Ohio State play, because every time you watch them play, you say, God darn it, we're a really good team. It's not even about Ohio State. Every time you watch Ohio State thrash another team,
it's just like we are really
solidifies that Notre Dame is a good team, a top 10 worthy team if they play their game.
That's right.
It just solidifies that. I watched them against Penn State, and I'm saying, yeah, like Notre Dame is the only defense I've seen pretty much stymie this Ohio State offense all year. I watched Michigan State, and I'm like, Notre Dame can play with Michigan. We can be physical with them. They don't have those dominant pass rushes on the outside like they did last year. I watched the Coleman kid dominate their DBs for pretty much 3 quarters. I'm like, yeah, we can make some hay. I don't think they have anybody that can stick Michael Mayer. The only team, which goes to Mike's point, the only team that I would say, I don't know if we match up with them, strictly because of the tempo, would be Tennessee. I just don't know.
Because
the defensive backfield at Notre Dame has been one of the better units this year. Mm-hmm. It really has. I just don't know if we match up well. Right? It's all about matchups. Georgia's going to come out and try to pound you. So if they just want to line up for 4 quarters and play physical football, fine. Hopefully the offense can put up some points and we stay in the game. But really, Tennessee really is that anomaly. They're like the Joe Burrow LSU team, the one-year wonder. It just everything came together, and you really have no answer for them. So it could be a Cinderella-type season for them down there in Knoxville.
No, absolutely could be. So excited to watch that. We get out, Tennessee, Georgia this week will be probably like a 1-2 match. I think it's a 1-2 matchup based on the AP. So very excited for that one. Definitely.
Mike, we appreciate you as always for giving us some time today. Once again,
appreciate it, fellas. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Hey, man, look here. Like he said, that's one of the big things about this game, man, as we talk about it. I know we can compete with Clemson. That's not the question. That's not the question. What are we going to get? What are we going to get from the quarterback position? Right? Are our linebackers and D-line going to be able to hold up? Because they're going to try to pound Will Shipley and the Mossov kid, the backup. We talked about we're really good against the number 1 running back. It's that number 2 running back that comes in that tends to have success against us. So it's going to be very interesting, man. I almost was thinking like, man, I hope it's really cold So it turns into strictly a ground and pound game, and it gives our offensive line and 3 running backs a chance to really set the tone.
Yeah.
But then I said, you know what? You don't want Michael Mayer to be totally taken out of the game. So give me 50 degrees and clear skies, and let's just go rock. Let's go play.
That's right. I think we really got into who we are as a team, and that is ride or die with 87. And until the team takes it away completely, we're not going to shy away from it. As much as obvious as it is, it seems to be working for us. And I think that's just, what is comfortable and most comfortable for the quarterback. I wish I would have asked Mike Golic, why do you think the quarterback room is limited at a place like Notre Dame, where that should be the room that's the most talented? I mean, the history of Notre Dame is no excuse in that, so for it to be, a guy that works hard and loves Notre Dame, that's not good enough for that position room. And so I wonder where the issue, what he thought where it lies at. But yeah, I think that the talent that we have and being worried about the second running back coming off of a great win like Syracuse and what the things we did to them, I just think that front seven is going to be stronger and prepared and ready for what the challenge of that Clemson running game is going to bring, because they go against our running game every practice. Oh, you're on mute.
My fault. Yeah, you need some creativity in the running game this week. I don't know if you need to do some misdirection, some reverses. You have to do something, because early on, like you said, they're used to it. They're going to be jacked up just like Notre Dame is jacked up. They know the importance of the game. This is like college football playoff or bust for them.
That's right.
You can't lose this game, and they know that. They know that. Before we get out of here, Marcus Freeman talked about the special teams and how wonderful they've been, and how knowing Dino, not Dino, but Dabo, we go from Dino to Dabo this week, how he knows Dabo has seen how good they are, and they expect a possible fate.
It's very similar to how you try to run the ball when they know you're going to try to run the ball. You can't do the exact same thing, but you got to spend time, trying to attack the deficiencies of the opponent, and then also make sure you're not putting yourself at a risk to getting a fake. That's the big challenge. Is, hey, we got to make sure at some point somebody's going to try to fake on us, and we got to make sure we're ready for it. And I think our guys are. We're prepared as long as everybody does their job. That's what I tell them. How do you prevent a fake? Because everybody does exactly what they're supposed to do. And but it's really kudos off to Coach Mason and that punt block unit. They're hungry for it. You can see it once you start getting a little bit of success and block a couple punts. They want it. They want to attack it, and they work on it after practice and really work at the deep.
They've had Clarence Lewis block a punt. Prince Colley's got in there. Isaiah Foskey's got in there. Like, yo, everybody in that group is like, man, let me get one.
Yeah.
I'm next. You love that. Absolutely. Like the job that Coach Mason and Coach Easton have done to improve those units that have struggled consistently. I said this on Saturday, bro. I watched special teams punt return all year. Brandon Joseph has had plenty of room to run the majority of the time. He's just not explosive enough to really take advantage.
No.
The second they get an explosive return guy with Coach Mason, they're taking at least 3 punts back.
Ooh.
At least 3 in a season.
No,
at least. Because the blocking is there. And it's only going to get better because I think the talent is going to get better that they're bringing in. Notre Dame Clemson, prime time, this Saturday, November 5th, the Super Bowl of the season to this point. Because if they beat Clemson, then that USC matchup becomes even bigger. Over 30 players will be on campus. Over 30 recruits will be on campus. And I'm sure that list is going to continue to grow. The atmosphere needs to. If you think Dino Babers begged Syracuse fans, Marcus Freeman needs to let Notre Dame fans know, look, Saturday night needs to be off the chain. We need cats hanging from the rafters. Like, it needs to be bananas up in there. We need to be intimidating. We need to give that offense issues.
You think we can be a stadium like that? We've never been.
Oh, man, dude. I hope so.
But like for real, like if Marcus Freeman sent out that Dino Babers dog whistle to the fans, you think we become a hostile environment on Saturday?
I hope so, man. I hope so, brother. That's all I can do is hope, right? Marcus Freeman.
I mean, I'll just see if you think, maybe. I don't know.
Marcus Freeman on Drew Pine today, and I'm sure we'll have the video tomorrow for you guys. Talking about Drew. He's got to improve. He's got to improve on his accuracy. Notes protection from the offensive line and the running backs can be better too. Come on, man. We could just leave it at he needs to be better. That's it. Protection with dude, look.
But this is the excuses you got to come to when you're not talking about the elephant in the room. How does a guy like that get behind center at a place like Notre Dame? That's the biggest question. Because if you answer that question, then you'll understand, okay, we're not trying hard enough in this department. Period. There should be no unless if Drew Pine was Kyler Murray ability, then yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, he's going to win the Heisman. The value of the room is like a D. A D. In the midst of a bunch of A rooms and great position groups and coaching staff, why is the main position on the team group a D? Where else is Drew Pine starting in the top 25 teams? Out of the top 25 teams, where's Drew Pine starting over? SC, Bama, Clemson, Ohio State, Michigan? Like where? Oklahoma State? There's no team in the top 25 that Drew Pine would start over. But why is that the case? That's the question. So when you get into these interviews and say, oh, well, we need more protection, everybody's got to do their part, that's not fair to everybody else.
One question for you before we get out of here. Hey, Malik, is it normal for an OC to go from the booth to the field before the game ends? Seem odd to me. Did Freeman tell Reese to come down?
Yeah, it's a little odd. I don't really know. That's an interesting thing. I haven't seen it often, but you also don't hear about stuff like that. So
I don't know what the setup is at the JMA Dome. Tommy comes down to be part of the alma mater. He leaves early all the time. They've talked about that on the broadcast, especially at home games. Like when they have everything in sync and they're just running the clock out, he'll leave, come down, make sure he gets down to the field for the alma mater. They still had like 3 minutes left in the game. So I don't know why he was down on the field that early. Maybe the setup there is different, but
yeah, it's just an interesting take.
Yeah, it wasn't anything out of the norm from what he does, though, as far as coming down to the field. I don't know. The band wasn't there, though. So do you guys do the alma mater on the road when the band's not there?
I don't even know if that's true because, usually on a road game, we hit in the locker room.
That's what I thought. Yeah, that's what I thought. So you will be coming down to meet the guys in the locker room on the road anyway.
Yeah,
yeah, that's a good point. All right, you know what time it is.
Petticoat, petticoat, Junction.
It's time to get petty.
Oh, we did a good job executing.
Are you upset with something?
And fire up the Petticoat Junction train.
I just don't like you. You don't? No.
What is today's petty historic? Petty Junction.
Petty Junction, petty story of the day, brought to you by Onora Whiskey, OnoraWhiskey.com, that premium American whiskey at OnoraWhiskey.com. Michigan State. Look here, man.
They beat that man up, man. That's crazy.
I feel bad. I feel bad because publicly, you know how you think you know how it went down? Right? And because you feel like you know how it went down, you don't feel the same way as some other people did.
Yeah.
You got to check in, bro. Like, you know how cats got to check in, right? And that's a tunnel. First of all, Michigan.
Oh my gosh.
James Franklin made it known that Michigan said and did some things to try and antagonize his players going up the tunnel. He made it public, right? Now, your boy just got caught slipping because he was skipping up the tunnel like it was all good, and I guarantee you he was chirping.
Oh,
I guarantee,
especially because he in the middle.
Yes.
He didn't think they was going to do nothing to him.
Absolutely.
And that's why but that's why I wish we wasn't living in 2022 because that's just a classic. You kept running your mouth. You know, it just handled in the locker room. You got beat up. Okay, well, don't do it next time.
Yep.
That's all it really should be eased out into. It shouldn't be no suspension and nothing.
No.
You just
they suspended 4 players. You had to. Because the way they beat him, dog.
Now they beat him up good, but if it didn't get on video, it would be something everybody be laughing about.
And that's why Michigan fans need to relax, right? Yes. Because that tunnel has a history of fights.
Yes.
Way before video and camera.
Way worse.
Stop. So relax. You're not victims. Get used to it, man. Lucky Lefty
I mean, like, because you can't come up with a scenario where you are in the midst of everybody that's not on your team,
man.
Unless you did that on purpose. Like, come on, man.
You ran into that one, my brother. You ran into that one.
And the video funny because it's just a bunch of white helmets.
Man, we should be laughing about this. LL Nation, forgive us. Claim 3,000, subscribe, like, share.
Wait a minute, whoa. If I was his teammate, though, I'd be like, what you doing? What do you want? Like, I couldn't even help you, man. You over there tripping. That's what you get. I'll be like, that's what you get, man.
Michigan team was walking to the locker room, saw him with knots on his head, like, what happened? Man, we out of here, dude. It's like, have a great Monday. Make sure you spend it different.